Chapter 2. Studying Social Life and Sociological Research Methods. Quizlet. Quantitative research translates the social world into numbers that can be treated mathematically. This type of research often tries to find cause and effect relationships. Qualitative research that works with non-numerical data such as texts, field notes, interview transcripts, photographs, and tape recordings. This type of research more often tries to understand how people make sense of their world. Action research, the presentation of detailed data on interactions and meaning within a cultural context, from the perspective of its members. Thick description, the presentation of detailed data on interactions and meaning in a cultural context, from the perspective of its members, facial expression / tone of voice. Scientific method, a procedure for acquiring knowledge that emphasizes collecting concrete data through observation and experiment. Literature review, a thorough search through previously published studies relevant to a particular topic. Hypothesis, a theoretical statement explaining the relationship between two or more phenomena. Variables, one of two or more phenomena that a researcher believes are related and hopes to believe are through research. Operational definition, a clear and precise definition of a variable that facilitates its measurement. Correlation, a relationship between variables in which they change together, may or may not be causal. Causation, a relationship between variables in which one directly produces a change in the other. Causal logic, causal logic illustrates a relationship between two variables. However, a causal relationship is one that does not simply reflect an existing connection between two variables, it shows that one actually causes change in the other. Therefore, X must occur before Y. Intervening variable, a third variable, sometimes overlooked, that explains the relationship between two other variables. Spurious correlation, the appearance of causation produced by an intervening variable. Paradigm shift, the term used to describe a change in basic assumptions of a particular scientific discipline. Ethnography, a naturalistic method based on studying people in their own environment in order to understand the meanings they attribute to their activities, also, the written or that results from the study. Participant observation, a methodology associated whereby the researcher both observes and becomes a member in a social setting. Rapport, a positive relationship often characterized by mutual trust or sympathy. Access, the process by which an ethnographer gains entry to a field setting. Field notes, detailed notes taken by an ethnographer describing their activities and interactions, which later become the basis of the ethnographic analysis. Reflexivity, how the identity and activities of the researcher influence what is going on in the field setting. Grounded theory, an inductive method of generating theory from data by creating categories in which to place data and then looking for relationships between categories. Replicability, research that can be repeated, and thus verified, by other researchers later. Representativeness, the degree to which a particular study group is similar to, or represents, any part of the larger society. Bias, an opinion held by the researchers that might affect the research or analysis. Interviews, face-to-face, information-seeking conversation, sometimes defined as a conversation with a purpose. Respondent, someone from whom a researcher solicits / collects information. Target population, the entire group about which a researcher would like to be able to generalize. Sample, the part of the population that will actually be studied. Closed-ended question, a question asked of a respondent that imposes a limit on the possible responses. Open-ended question, a question asked of a respondent that allows the answer to take whatever form the respondent chooses. Leading questions, questions that predispose a respondent to answer in a certain way. Double-barreled questions, questions that attempt. Double-barreled questions, questions that attempt to get at multiple issues at once, and so tend to receive incomplete or confusing answers. Survey, a method based on questionnaires that are administered to a sample of respondents selected from a target population. Likert scale, a way of organizing categories on a survey question so that the respondent can choose an answer along a continuum. Negative questions, survey questions that ask respondents what they don't think instead of what they do. Representative sample, a sample taken so that findings from members of the sample group can be generalized to the whole population. Probability sampling, any sampling scheme in which any given unit has the same probability of being chosen. Simple random sample, a particular type of probability sample in which every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. Weighting, techniques for manipulating the sampling procedure so that the sample more closely resembles the larger population. Response rate, the number or percentage of surveys completed by respondents and returned to researchers. Reliability, the consistency of a question or measurement tool, the degree to which the same questions will produce similar answers. Confidentiality, the assurance that no one other than the researcher will know the identity of the respondent. Validity, the accuracy of a question or measurement tool, the degree to which a researcher is measuring what he thinks he is measuring. Pilot study, a small study carried out to test the feasibility go a larger one. Existing sources, materials that have been produced for some other reason, but can be used as data for social research. Statistical software allows for the expedient generation of statistical results. Examples include SAS, SPSS, SUTN, and Strata. Qualitative software allows for the examination of non-numerical data and identification of trends and patterns. Examples include NVivo and Atlas. Web-based surveys are administered via the Internet. They allow the investigator to contact many people in different geographic regions without traveling to that particular place. An example is SurveyMonkey. Web-based focus groups. Here, focus group studies are conducted via the Internet. They allow the investigator to contact many people in different geographic regions without traveling. Comparative and historical methods that use existing sources to study relationships between elements of society in various regions and time periods. Content analysis, a method in which researchers identify and study specific variables such as words in a text, image, or media message. Experiments, formal tests of specific variables and effects, performed in a controlled setting where all aspects of the situation can be controlled. Control, in an experiment, the process of regulating all factors except for the independent variable. Quasi-experimental, unlike true experiments, quasi-experiments do not take place in a highly controlled environment. Likewise, randomization is not employed. Quasi-experiments are best used to evaluate the effectiveness of public programs to increase external validity. Experimental group, the part of a test group that receives the experimental treatment. Control group, the part of rest group that is allowed to continue without intervention so that it can be compared with the experimental group. Independent variable, factor that is predicted to cause change. Dependent variable, factor that is going to be changed, or not, by the independent variable. Value-free sociology, an ideal whereby researchers identify facts without allowing their own personal beliefs or biases to interfere. Basic research, the search for knowledge without any agenda or desire to use that knowledge to effect change. Applied research, research designed to gather knowledge that can be used or learned to create some sort of change. Objectivity, impartially, the ability to allow the facts to speak for themselves. Reactivity, the tendency of people and events to react to the process of being studied. Hawthorne effect, a specific example of reactivity, in which the desired effect is the result not of the independent variable but the research itself. Deception, the extent to which the participants in a research project are unaware of the project or its goals. Unobtrusive measures, research methods that rely on existing sources and where the researcher does not intrude upon or disturb the social setting or its subjects. Informed consent, a safeguard through which the researcher makes sure that respondents are freely participating and understand the nature of the research. Code of Ethics, ethical guidelines for researchers to consult as they design a project. Institutional Review Board, a group of scholars within a university who meet regularly to review and approve the research proposals of their colleagues and make recommendations for how to protect human subjects. Social network analysis, how people are connected to each other and how those connections influence their behavior, disease, mental health, etc. Milgram and Travers said everyone has 5.5 to 6 degrees of separation. Value-free sociology, an ideal whereby researchers identify facts without allowing their own personal beliefs or biases to interfere.
Thanks for watching.